It was a 1.3L black Mark III Ford Escort, £125.
It's cheap.
How bad can it be? Got there, and obviously the car is a non-runner. So do you know what I did?
I'm surprised it didn't box you.
I managed to find two 15-inch base bins, and I was just powering them straight from the head unit. Plywood box, leaking joints and ragged edges and all that crap.
And it was kind of cool because you'd want to be one of the odd ones out there. It was great to be driving down the road and people would turn around and wow, to that car.
CAS Unplugged.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and another podcast. I'm here with Parm.
What's up, guys?
And we are going to continue with the theme of car audio. It looks like you guys really enjoyed the last podcast where we asked the question, is car audio dead? I think we covered that topic quite well, didn't we?
Yeah, it's quite definitely not dead. So
no, if anything, it's getting stronger and stronger. So if you've not seen that episode, there's a link in the description. Go and have a listen or a watch of that. Today, we're going to talk about car audio again. We're going to cover maybe 3 or 4 different topics. And you ready for this one, Paul?
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's get into it. What we'll do is we'll start the episode with how we got into car audio, because it looks like some of our listeners and viewers are maybe a little bit older, probably not as old as me, but a little bit older, and they sort of they warm to the conversation we had in the previous episode where we were talking about car audio from the 80s and the 90s. So I'll ask you the question: what was your first car, and what did you do car audio wise and other mods? Can you remember? Can you think back that far?
God, it's a long-winded story, to be honest with you.
Well, we got all the time in the world. We have, but I don't know if our audience have. So you need to just shorten it and, talk about all the good bits.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, basically, the first car was a Mark III Ford Escort X-Reg. So that made it a 1980? 70,
Sounds
80,
about right.
80, 98, 79, 1980 probably. And allow it. No.
That was so funny, wasn't it, guys? What a joke.
but okay, so basically, listen, when you turn 14, 15, you're just edging for that independence. You want to pass your license, you want to get a car. And
you want to pass your test to get a license, but in your case, pass your license. Yeah, that's
no, you could get licenses back then, but I didn't get mine. I did actually take driving lessons, and I did fail twice.
I didn't pass first time.
No way.
But it's not about me, it's about you.
Yeah. But anyway, it is what it is. But I think the reason why I failed twice is because I had bad habits because I used to drive around without a license. So probably bad habits, and it was hard to shake those off. But anyway, so passed my license, didn't have a pot to piss in.
Passed your test.
Passed my license. Sorry. Passed my test, but didn't have a pot to piss in. But I was, you've got your license.
That's standard though.
You're 16, 17 years old and you want a car.
Yeah, standard.
So looking through, I think it was the Loop. Do you remember the Loop? Mm-hmm. Looking through the Loop, and there was a 1.3 black. It was a 1.3L black Mark III Ford Escort, non-runner, £125. I was like, okay.
Wow, it's cheap.
Okay, how bad can it be? And the advert also said has got XR3i front splitter, boot spoiler. So I'm thinking, wow, this is flipping cool because it's going to look like an XR3i. But anyway, and the car was actually all the way in North London. I think it was Finchley or something like that. So from where I used to live.
He's saying all the way in North London, but you lived in West London. It's not very far.
Yeah, but when you got to bus it.
Yeah, that's far.
Yeah. So 2 to 3 hours on the bus, got there, and obviously the car is a non-runner. So do you know what I did? So I actually bought the car, 125 quid. I phoned a cab. And the cabbie got there, and I said to him, it's actually not for me, you're towing my car. I made a cabbie tow my car And you know what? Back in those days, it was all right. He was happy to do it.
Wow.
And it was like £6.
You ask an Uber driver to do that now.
Oh yeah, mate.
luck.
He's gone even before you can say bye.
Yeah.
So yeah, got the car back, and then my dad got home and he said, "What the have you bought here?"
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what I mean? Typical, right? I was like, "Chill, Dad. It's cool. We can work on it together and get it running."
Surprised it didn't box you.
That's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it was quite cool because me and my dad managed to get the car running. It was a 1.3L on carburetors, and basically the carburetor was all choked up. All the vacuum hoses were all choked up with carbon. They're all blocked. So we gave it all a good clean up, and it actually started. So
Nice.
so yeah, that was my first car, and I ran that through college for probably year and a half, 2 years. Done me well, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for enlightening us with that story. But you didn't ask my question.
What's that?
What was your first mod and what did you do audio-wise?
Do you want to answer that? What was my first mod? Just take a guess.
Slapped it on the floor.
Yeah. Mate, that's when I found my dad's angle grinder. I've still got it, actually.
Nice.
The angle grinder still in the garage, and it still works. So yeah, the first thing was to just get it sitting a little bit lower, and
So you just cut the springs, yeah?
as you did back in the day, got the angle grinder out, chopped the springs on it, and yeah, it drove like a dog. But you know what?
Bag of
It was sitting low. Do you know what? In college, it was,
You got some street cred, didn't you?
It was pretty cool. yeah, 100%. And then I used to work at Burger King in the evenings, and one evening my car it was parked outside on the high street and it didn't start, and I was like, God's sakes. So my manager at the time, he gave me a lift home. He had an XR3i as well, but
A proper one.
a
legit one.
a legit XR3i. And so he's dropping me home. He had this little graphic EQ in the front of the dash.
Nice.
Wired in through the original stereo. And I could hear some bass pumping in the back. And I goes to him, "Oh, Errol." His name was Errol. I went, "Wow, what you got in the back?" He goes, "Oh, it's just my house speaker, man. I'll just chuck it in when I want some bass." I was like, "That's sick." And so that's where my love from bass came from. And oh, listen, shall I just say it on camera? So anyway, I managed to find, so I'm a skint college kid. I managed to find, again, in loot, 2 15-inch bass bins. Mm-hmm. Basically PA speakers, right?
DJ speakers type.
DJ, yeah, cone, paper cone and all that. Listen, mate, I didn't know. Let's face it. So I found some wood in the garage. I made a massive box to go in the back of this Mark III Escort. 2 15-inch bins in it. And I was just powering them straight from the head unit.
From the Ford head unit.
No, I did have a Pioneer pullout.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, man. So I used to walk into college carrying a flipping briefcase, like...
Yeah, well,
do you know what I mean?
We'll show you that in a moment. Not that Pioneer pullout, but we'll show you a different pullout in a minute.
And, mate, looking back, it sounded bloody atrocious.
So you would have had stock speakers, but loads of bass. So it would have distorted like hell, but the bass would have been like...
Yeah, there was no vocals. There was no mid.
A bit like some of our customers that rock into our shop at the moment.
Yeah, and so that's where my love for bass started, and it went uphill from there. I learnt from that.
As you do, you got to start at the bottom.
Plywood box.
There's only one way to go when you start at the bottom.
Plywood box, leaking joints and ragged edges and all that crap. But yeah, listen, you start somewhere, right? And
What did you use to glue the box?
Glue?
Was it just sellotape, double-sided?
No, I used nails.
Did you? Okay. Surprising.
Not even screws. It was just straight nails.
Surprising anyway.
Listen, dude, I was 17 years old, had no money, but I heavily got into it. And listen, when you're growing up, you just want to do something and just, that's how, and that
It's good.
And for a lot of people, that's how you experiment and you learn from your stupidness, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, that's where my love for bass started, and
It's pretty good, actually. Pretty good system.
it was all right. No, it wasn't. Mate, 2 15-inch head units powered off a 4x25 Pioneer pullout. Nah,
Well,
didn't cut it.
it's better than what I had.
Go on.
So my first car was a Fiesta 950cc Mark 1. That's what I learnt
Oh, nice.
in sky blue.
Cool.
Engine blew up, but we sold it. Got good money for it, actually.
With the blown engine.
Blown engine, bit like yours, you know.
Nice. Non-runner.
Well, it was running, just a bit noisy. And my second car was a Ford Escort 1.3 Mark II in red.
Oh, sick.
With a cloth tan interior.
Nice.
And I sort of recreated a 1.3 Sport, changed the front bumper with the lower front bumper, changed the front, the front valance, changed the bumpers from the long single piece sort of aluminium steel bumpers to two separate ones, put CBs on the front, you know, put my own little take on it.
Awesome.
All cheap. I say CBs, but they weren't CBs. They're cheap ones I got from some raggedy little pit stop somewhere in Birmingham. And I managed to get hold of a Philips car stereo, which used to be supplied in Vauxhall Cavaliers. So I had that in my Ford Escort. I bought that from a shop, so I didn't buy that nookie. All right.
Hold on. You went into a shop and bought a Vauxhall stereo?
Yeah. How they got it, I don't know, but I paid over the counter. I had a receipt to prove that I bought that stereo.
So to you, it was legit?
Legit. Bought it from a shop. And speakers-wise, I went to Richer Sounds in Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
And this is the early days of Richer Sounds. And they used to have second-hand goods there. You could buy second-hand bits and pieces. And they had these Bose, I think they're like 101s, very small speakers, about that big. I think it was just a mid-range and a tweeter. Boxy speakers.
Domestic speakers.
And they're like £30 for the pair. They're used, they're battered. I bought those. They're 8-ohm speakers.
But back in the 60s, 30 quid was a lot of money.
50s, mate. But I'm in the 50s and I'm driving a car from 1978.
Oh, okay.
It was an S-Reg car, UON 408S.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think that's alive anymore. And I fitted that all on my driveway. Fitted the Philips stereo, fitted the rear speakers on the shelf. For those of you that know about Mark II Escorts, this was a 2-door. The rear shelf curves, so I just screwed it into the rear shelf, run the speaker cable, tucked it down the carpet. Sounded great.
It was all right back in the day to like that. Because,
sounded great.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
It sounded absolutely awesome. And to be fair, I probably didn't have as much bass as you did, but at least I had clarity, bit of dynamic range, which your car would have lacked.
So what we could have done is you drive in front, I drive in back. You provide the vocals and I provide the bass.
That would have worked really well. Especially as your car was always broken down, so I'd just be towing you.
Yeah.
That would have worked, wouldn't it?
Happy days. Best of both
it's like
worlds.
a big speaker,
Yeah,
tweeters in the front and the bass at the back. I think when I transitioned from my Escort into my second car, or should I say my third car, the Peugeot.
Hold on. So you went from a Mark II Escort straight to a 205 GTI?
So the Mark II Escort my dad bought for me.
Okay.
And when I left Birmingham, I didn't want to bring it to Polly, so we sold that car. I think, in fact, I smashed it, so we had to sell it. Okay.
So you sold one non-runner, you sold one smashed up car.
Shows the salesman in me. Sell a non-runner, sell a smashed car. Did quite well. I think I managed to wash my face and get all our money back, so my dad was quite happy.
Oh.
And then the car I bought with my own money while I was at Polly was the Peugeot 205 GTI 1.9. Had to be the 1.9 because obviously, you know, you want to flex your muscles.
Right.
You want the 1.9 and not the 1.6.
You were balling, bruv.
And I managed to, because I was working and studying, I managed to save enough money. But working on Tottenham Court Road made me realise what true car audio was about. And serving customers and selling customers and learning about new products, all the new Pioneer Kenwood stuff. And so we didn't sell Alpine back then. It's predominantly Pioneer and Kenwood. And that's how I learned about car audio, and you know that you had a proper head unit, you could change the speakers, and changing speakers back then was quite easy because you either had 13 centimeter, 16 centimeter, or maybe a 10 centimeter. In some cases, you had a 4x6. There's none of this stuff that we have now, underseat subwoofers and you know, 3-way component kits. The stereo was easy because it was all on a sort of typical ISO plug, although you used to have massive wiring looms on the back of some of the stereos. And that's when I started learning about amps. And speakers, 6x9s was a big thing. Obviously, you know, if we think back then, if you wanted cheap bass in your car in the 90s,
6x9 was the way to go.
Just get yourself a pair of 50 or 60 pound 6x9s, cut the rear shelf, because if you had a hot hatch rear shelf was next to nothing. You can buy one for £20 back then. So you cut the shelf, you fit the 6x9s, run the cable, run them off your head unit, don't need a separate amp, and you had decent sound quality-ish, some bass, some mids and tops. Obviously, over time, your shelf will bow because of the weight of the 6x9s.
But then we came into the era where there was a company that used to make MDF parcel shelves for, remember how many of those we used to
Yes,
sell?
that was a company called Auto Acoustics, and they were based in Chertsey, I believe. And they started making proper three-quarter inch MDF parcel shelves.
That's when your 6x9s would sound they'd sound pretty good.
They sound pretty good, and they were OEM fitment that even come with the pegs and the string and everything, and they'd come carpeted or non-carpeted. We sell them for about £60, I think, £50-60.
Yeah.
And it was a good sale for us. It was a good purchase for the consumer because they keep the original shelf, and the MDF shelf always sounded better because the speaker's on a baffle. I think that's when it started to change. I mean, now, if you got a Mark III Escort XR3i or an RS Turbo or something like that, imagine trying to find a parcel shelf which hasn't been cut. I've seen them go upwards of £500-600.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Madness. I think the other thing was the type of music that you listen to. So obviously you'd be at home listening to, I used to listen to a lot of dub plates and reggae with low bass notes. And then you get in your car and you're like, why don't this shit sound the same? And then, one of your mates would come up to you go, you need a subwoofer in it, bruv. So
Is that how you spoke back then?
No, that's how my mate spoke.
Okay.
Not me. Yeah, you need subs in the back, innit, bro? So then, obviously, then you think, okay, yeah. So I think also the type of music that you listen to would aid that want for the bass in the vehicle.
For me, working on Tottenham Court Road, obviously around audio and tech and so on, music was a big thing. And anyone that came in, they came in for a reason, for a purpose. If they're buying music, they're not going to walk out with just a set of tweeters. Yeah. They came in because they wanted to modify their car, or they wanted home audio. And subs was a big part of any home system as well. Any floor standing speaker you had, there's always a subwoofer. And back then we used to sell a lot of products were quite cheap then. We used to sell a lot of Jamo speakers. They were called like D265s or 365s. And it was basically a three-way floor standing speaker, quite wide, and one would have like a 10-inch woofer, one would have a 12-inch woofer or a 15-inch woofer.
And these are domestic speakers.
These are domestic speakers, and we used to sell them by the bucket load because they were cheap. They were like £200 a pair for a 12-inch woofer, mid-range and tweeter, domestic speakers, and then you'd buy an amplifier. This is before the era of AVRs.
But then that would have been an 8-tone.
Yeah, but I'm talking about home products, so I'm digressing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but because of that, it made me realize actually bass was a necessity, whether you're in your home or you're in your car. And it was kind of cool because you'd want to be one of the odd ones out there. And you had a cool car, but actually you had bass. And in those days, it was great to be driving down the road and people would turn around and, wow.
You felt like the king of the road.
Listen to that car. And they'd give you respect, I'm sure you did it many a time, and I did as well. Driving down Southall Broadway, cruising down, bass playing, everyone checking you out. God, this guy's car sounds absolutely nuts. I mean, to be fair, people used to do that in Southend. And, we touched on it last episode. That's before the era of pop, pop, bang, bang. Yeah, although you did have big ball Pico exhaust and so on. And they were kind of cool, but bass was a big thing. And quality was, you didn't want to just hear boom, boom, boom. You wanted to hear the top end as well. You wanted to hear the tweeters and the clarity and the dynamic full range.
So I think back in the day, all it was subwoofers and tweeters. That was it. There was no mid. So all you could literally hear was
maybe one 13 centimeter speaker.
And then boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. So that's why bass work for me was very important. And that's sort of how I got into the car audio scene, was through Tottenham Court Road and me building my own proper car. It wasn't a demo car, it was for me. It was personal. So those are our first cars and those are our stories. It's kind of weird now because, we covered this in our last episode, that a lot of guys now, when they buy their first car, they don't bother changing the stereo unless it doesn't have CarPlay, but they leave the speakers and stuff alone. They tend to do probably a bit like what you did, go for a bit of lows, maybe some engine mods on the sly so the insurance company don't find out. So it'd be interesting to hear from you guys. If you guys have got any stories like that, drop a comment below. What did you do as your first mod, maybe your first audio mod? So since we're talking about retro stereos again, Parm, I've actually bought 2 or 3 of my units from my retro collection here. We'll pull them across. One of the coolest things back then was to have a pull-out stereo. So, you'd go into a pub and you've got your Pioneer Centrate or your Kenwood pull-out or your Alpine pull-out.
You've got your pint there and you've got your stereo there. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and some people used to leave it under their seat, which defeats the object, because the first thing someone broke into your car, they saw the empty slot. Okay, he's got a pull-out. They're going to look under your seat. They're going to look in the boot, or they're going to look in your glove box. So, you'd see guys walking into a pub with their pull-out stereo, or you're walking around shopping with your missus, with your girlfriend, and she's got shopping bags and you're walking around with your pull-out stereo. But one other great aspect of car audio then, which we rarely see now, and in fact we don't in tech world, were equalizers. And in my Peugeot, I ended up having an equalizer. My car after that, a 325i convertible, had a separate equalizer. And that was so cool to have a separate EQ. So let me show you guys.
I think I used to have a long mill. Do you remember long mill?
Of course.
I used to have a long mill sliding. Oh, you.
So here is an Alpine 7618.
But that's from the that's from the 90s, right?
Mid-90s.
Mid-90s, yeah.
And this was second from top of the range.
Wow.
The top of the range is a 7619. This is one of the stereos from my collection. I, in fact, have one of these brand new sealed, unopened.
Really?
Brand new, unopened, unused, sealed. I think back then we used to sell this for about £500 on Tottenham Court Road. So it's a lot of money in the 90s. No amplifier built in, so RCA preamps only. So if you bought this, you had to have separate amplifiers or amplifier, 5-channel, 6-channel. Quality, obviously tape deck. Quality was second to none because of the components. And even you can feel it. It's a weighty, chunky unit.
So that probably would have been manufactured. The reason why it was so expensive at that time is because it was probably manufactured in Japan rather than China.
Probably, for some reason, the cage is stuck on there. Probably because I haven't pulled it out the cage for years. But yeah, this would have probably been made in Japan. And Alpine back then for head units were the best. If you had an Alpine, you're the man. I mean, if you look at some of the rap videos from back then, they actually mention the name Alpine. Will Smith does in Miami.
Yeah.
And their Alpine's Alpine.
Summertime.
It's summertime.
Adjust the bass and let the Alpine blast. Adjust the Alpine and let the bass. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, we'll find that clip.
Adjust the bass and let the Alpine blast.
Think of the summers of the past. Adjust the bass and let the Alpine blast.
Miami's gone, we're going to Miami.
Oh, yeah. He's pretty good, actually, guys. Yeah. And Alpine's demo vehicle.
Oh, yeah, they had that. Yes, with Lambo, wasn't it?
Lamborghini Diablo.
Yes.
Iconic.
Yes.
Absolutely iconic.
Yes.
So these were the go-to stereos if you wanted the top end. Obviously, there were loads of other bits and pieces below that. And then we move into equalizers. So this is a little bit later than that. It's an ERE G180 from memory. So this is RCA inputs on the back. And so you'd have your head unit, and your single RCA from your head unit would go into the RCA input on the equalizer. And then you've got 3 RCA outputs on this one, which will go to one 5-channel amp or separate amps, depending on what you wanted to do. And to adjust the bass, you'd use the lower frequencies. And then you've got your mid-range here, and then you've got your top end, the treble. Yeah, so if you want flat, you just go into the middle. And then if you want more bass, you go up. If you want less bass, you just go down. You adjust that depending on what your system can handle. Obviously, if you've got separate subwoofers and so on, you can really crank up the bass and feel it depending on the type of music you're playing.
The other thing that the EQs were really good for was if you only had a stereo, which is back then a lot of stereos only had one pre-out. So you literally, that gives you three. front, rear, and subwoofer. So that's another thing that they were really good for, was expanding your system. And just particularly if you wanted to run like 2 amps, a bass amp and a 4-channel amp, then that would also
you could do that from there. Yeah,
that would be the go-to product. But yeah,
So this was a way of sort of fine tuning your sound to your personal listening preference and tweaking it and playing around with it. And you can really sort of go in quite deep. And in my case, I wouldn't let anyone touch my equalizer. You know, your stereo system was part of you. And sometimes your mates would get in your car and they start playing around with the equalizer and they just get a slap. It's like, leave it alone.
Leave my shit alone,
Yeah,
man.
these are my settings. It's my car. It's personal to me. You go and do that in your own car. And if you haven't got an equalizer, tough. Go and buy one. So yeah. So very, very important. These were back in the 90s. They've sort of died out now because a lot of good stereos, including CarPlay screens, like if you look at all the Kenwoods and the Pioneers and the Alpines, they have equalizers built in, all touchscreen with memories.
So a lot of them have built-in crossovers, frequency adjustment. A lot of them now also have front, rear and subwoofer pre-outs. So the need for those is also, it's diminished really.
Yeah, so this is a very much a retro vibe going on here. And we will bring something back like this to showcase you guys at some point in one of our cars, a very top-end audio build, but running off retro components, which in terms of quality are as good as, or if not, maybe better than some of the products out there, purely because of the components that are used to build the head units. So we have a news article here, which it's been in the news for about a year, but CAF have partnered up with Lotus to introduce CAF audio in two of the new Lotuses, the Emira, the sports car, and the Electra, which is the EV SUV. And this partnership showcases that they're using the unique Q range of speakers in their new Lotuses. And I think it's really awesome to see that some of these car brands are knocking on the door of home hi-fi brands, and not just, no disrespect, but lower level home hi-fi. These guys are knocking on the door of high level audio brands. You know, you've got obviously Lotus and CAF, you got Range Rover with Meridian,
Absolutely.
so with BMW and Harman Kardon, and with Porsche and Bose, those systems are okay, but there's always room for improvement. And we've seen that over the last few years, where customers have come in with their F generation BMWs and even Porsche 991, 992s we've had in now, where when they spec that car, they've ticked that option for Bose and it's cost them maybe £1,500 additional. But they realize the quality of that is not up to the standard they're used to with their home audio, and they ripped that out. And we've got it with the Focal P60th anniversary for the 911, 991 range. And there are so many other custom kits that we can fit. For example, the BMW, as you said, you've got Audison bits, under seat subs. But I think at the top end of the market, it's, yes, you can improve, but I think when somebody's ticked the box, CAF, Lotus, Mercedes, Burmeister, then probably not going to change the stereo, because that's...
I think you're wrong.
Really?
I think you're wrong there, because do you know how many phone calls we get and how many Mercedes that are already equipped with Burmeister and people actually don't like it?
Actually, yeah, that probably example is a bit poor, I've said, because I've seen some cars go through the workshop where we've ripped the Burmeister and we've upgraded it, and it's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. You know, that's where integration comes in, which I think we touched on the last podcast. So you integrate in new amplifiers and you change the speakers,
DSP, processor, all of that stuff.
Exactly. So people, a majority of people actually don't like the Burmeister. And Range Rover Meridian.
Yeah.
You know what? If you've got a Range Rover with Meridian, I'm not saying it's crap. It actually is pretty good. But there's a massive
gap.
The first thing is the price tag on that Meridian upgrade is quite big.
It's a good few £1,000s.
So if you're looking to buy a new one, don't spec it with that. But anyway, it's almost impossible to mess around or change anything in a Range Rover that comes with Meridian.
It's a lot of work, because the amplifiers underneath the passenger seat, it's all DSP, it's all controlled, it goes through the stereo. We have done a few, but it means rewiring all the speakers, it's new amps, it's a lot of work.
It's a ball ache. So it just goes to show, although you're being, at the dealership, you're being sold a top-end hi-fi system, a lot of these people actually think this is rubbish.
So basically, if you are into music and you're an audiophile, and you're at that point where you can spec a new car and you've got the option to go with a new system, there's always going to be a better option out there on the aftermarket. So we would say that if it's costing you, for example, £1,500 for a Porsche Bose upgrade and £3,000 for the Meridian, maybe live with the car with the OEM system initially. And if you're into music, you need to come and see a specialist, because for not a lot more, you can have something which sounds a lot better. You know, I can't say it's 10 times better, 20 times better. It's very difficult to put a number on it, but it would always sound better than the stock system, which has been upgraded, because obviously once you've done that, you're stuck with it. Okay, finally, guys, let's just touch on some comments that we had from the last episode. And I've got to say a big thank you and shout out to each and every one of you that commented. We read all the comments. We do try and answer them as well. And it's good to see that you guys are listening, watching the episode, and are also interacting. And that's what we want. You know, we want to hear your stories, and any questions you may have, we'll try and answer them the best we can. So I'm just going to maybe touch on 2 or 3. A gentleman called Turbo SFUL, that's his username. Bring back base days. The younger generation don't know what they are missing. Remember going to Wembley for SPL days. I think base days I think it's going to come back. The amount of people that we speak to now, be it at CAS, be it at a show, and they're all saying, look, guys, bring it back, bring it back. And I think the golf that we did, the power-based golf, has really created a bit of a fire in people's belly. And those people that are a little bit older that had a base car back in the day are now trying to, you know, the conversation we've had, I'm going to build one.
Relive their youth.
Yeah. And some of the new younger generation think, actually, what is this, all this base stuff? And we're getting asked those questions. Yeah. So I'm glad to say that we may be part of that new drive for bring back bass. Maybe that should be something, a strap line that we need to trademark. Shouldn't say that loud on the podcast. But yeah, maybe we need to bring back bass, Parm. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we got space to fit one in this season, but I think if we get a date in, excuse me, I think if we get a date in for early next season, let's just lock in a date and let's do a bass day. Actually, sod it. Sorry, excuse my French. Sod it. Right. Next podcast, we'll let you guys know a date. Keep an eye on our socials. Let's get it done. All right. Let's do it. Let's do that.
We did mention that we are bringing a brand back, which is a little bit of a base brand as well. We'll talk about that in the next podcast, because there's actually 2 brands that we are bringing back. So we'll talk about the next podcast. It's from a gentleman called at JC's Own World. 42 years old, owned his first car at 16. He's had many vehicles and he's installed systems in every single one of them. Started with Radio Shack. He's got to be American. Radio Shack is the old Tandy from America. Now he has multiple amps, DSP, active subs, active speakers, custom sub boxes. When he was young, he liked SPL. Now he's into SQ, which I think is very typical.
It's a natural progression, yeah.
My home audio system is also superb too. So that sort of touches on what we said earlier, that, you know, if you've got a home audio setup, which is really good, you jump in your car, you want that to sound really good as well, because that's the level of quality that you're used to. That's what your ears want to hear. That's what you want to feel. And that's typically what consumers are doing now. So that's a very positive comment to end the conversation on.
And you know what? Listen, there's nothing like going for a late night drive with good quality music in your car. And just, you know, it's for me, it's me time. I'll sometimes 10:30, I'll be like, love, I'll be back in half an hour, and I'm in the car just going for a drive. You know, if you've had a stressful day or a stressful week, it just makes driving a lot nicer as well, a lot more enjoyable.
It does. I know some of you will say, well, I'd rather listen to my exhaust note or my engine. But, you know, sometimes if you're sitting in traffic, there is no exhaust note. Yeah. Or if you're on the motorway for an hour, that's a bit of a droney exhaust note. Perfect time to listen to some music and just let the time sort of pass by.
You know, yeah, I find that a good stereo just improves my mood, to be honest with you. You know, you get home, you got, you know, you're bopping, you get out of the car.
Palm's got the moves there, hasn't he?
I'm telling you, man. You know, you get out of the car and, you know, you're in a good mood because you've been listening to some nice beats. You know, it's definitely helps the mood as well.
So guys, we're going to end it here. That's 3 or 4 topics we've covered today. A little bit different to last month's podcast. If you're still here now, then thank you. Most importantly, make sure you smash the like button. The next month's podcast might be a little bit later because in between now and the end of July, we've got Goodwood Festival of Speed.
A lot going on.
We've got a lot going on, and so it might be a little bit later. Maybe we'll cover shows in the next podcast. That'd be a good one because we can talk about Goodwood Festival of Speed, what that was like, and how maybe the show scene has changed. Or if there's another conversation that you think you'd like us to maybe attack and discuss, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear about any of your 80s or 90s nostalgic audio builds and so on. Again, just drop a comment. But yeah, appreciate you guys listening, watching, and commenting. Smash the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.
See you in a bit.